Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And Britain's crime rates are rising again. The streets are not safe to walk. But don't think about calling a policeman, because chances are they are the biggest crooks of all. It's almost as though line of duty has come true. There are thousands upon thousands of crooks employed by the police. And a new report blows the lid on how many there are, and it is frightening. Is this the police force we deserve? Let's look at this report. So, thousands of corrupt police on our streets. A bombshell report after murder of Sarah Everard reveals even criminals, or those with gang links, are being allowed to sign up for duty. Analysis of personnel files found it was far too easy for corrupt officers to join. His Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary made a remarkable 43 recommendations to address standards. And the police examined 3 forces linked with the officer Wayne Couzens. This is unbelievable that A, that there's that many, and B, that there's so many recommendations being sort of advised, because there's that many holes in the operational procedures to stop this from happening. The police are supposed to be a professional outfit. It's a joke. In fact, it's not a joke, because a joke is supposed to be funny. This is dangerous. We know people are dying. Thousands of police have criminal records, are linked to gangsters, or pose a risk to the public, watchdogs warned yesterday. Analysis of personnel files found it was far too easy for misogynistic, corrupt, or predatory officers to join up and stay in uniform. And I've been saying for a long time, the police are not your friends. And here we've finally got proof from His Majesty's Inspectorate. Matt Parr, Inspector of Constabulary, called for better screening to weed out the dangerous individuals. Among the bombshell findings in his report were officers could switch forces without vetting information being passed on. Some bosses hired recruits without conducting face-to-face interviews. Others failed to check employment records of applicants and even hired recruits who had lied on applications. And bosses took extra risks on candidate if it helped to boost diversity. So what they're saying is you could be a crook, but because you're, say, black or Asian, that was completely overlooked, because then they could have a black or Asian face in the lineup, helped ticking those boxes. The fact that you were a crook is immaterial to them, that you had the right face that fits. Oh, yes, I've done time for assault, and I've got 3 convictions for, fraud. But look, I've got a brown face and I'm gay. So, I'll be a policeman. Yes, certainly, sign up, tick, because that's effectively what they're doing. His Majesty's Inspector for Constabulary Fire and Rescue Services made a remarkable 43 recommendations to address shoddy standards. I'm surprised they've got standards. Commissioned last October in the wake of the death of Sarah Everard by Met Officer Wayne Couzens, the probe examined 3 forces linked with him: Kent Police, the Met and the Civil Nuclear Constabulary. Also scrutinised were Cumbria, South Wales, Nottinghamshire, Dorset and Devon and Cornwall. Mr Parr cited astonishing examples of vetting failures, including one special constable who'd had a 12-month supervisory order for indecent exposure. Now, if you're employing policemen who are convicted of S crimes, you cannot be surprised when they go on then to use the power and uniform that they've been given to commit further S crimes. Anyway, this individual, he applied 3 times to the same force over 13 years and was eventually cleared by the vetting process after an appeal. Inspectors said he should have been automatically rejected. Anyone with any criminal conviction whatsoever should be automatically lifetime rejected and banned and can never apply. And anyone who's in the Met, hell, that'd be a start. Anyone who's in any police force with a conviction should be fired. End of story. Another officer who passed the checks had been caught speeding 5 years earlier, convicted of attempted theft abroad, and was linked with dealing or product and very V criminals. Inspectors also found examples of recruits with connections to organised criminals. One special officer had extensive criminality within his family, including a brother with convictions for dealing, and V, who was also a person of interest in M and K investigations. Now, this really is line of duty, isn't it? This is a guy that's grown up, become a special constable, then it's only a short hop from special constable to a full-time. I mean, you could end up a bloody sergeant. And you are that linked to criminality. It's what is going on? Is nobody even looking at this? It's almost like, yeah, want to be a cop here, have a uniform, we don't care. Are you so desperate to get people to wear a uniform that you're going to let criminals like this in? The applicant claimed to be estranged from his sibling, but no attempt was made to check that this was true or to mitigate the risk of corruption. Another officer who claimed he had minimal contact with his criminal brother was in fact living with him. Despite his dishonesty and the obvious risks, the officer was cleared of any wrongdoing because his lies were not significant enough to deny vetting to a young man who wanted to fulfill his dream of joining the police. Well, I'm sorry, that is bullshit. You cannot help what your brother does. You're not your brother's keeper. But if you're sitting there living in the same house with him and then lying on an application form, that makes you a liar. And if you're a liar, you're not a policeman. You are somebody who should never, ever be a policeman. We want honest people. We want people who aren't crooks. We want people who aren't going to M women or anybody. But we're not getting that. Mr. Parr said it is too easy for the wrong people to both join and stay in the police. If the police are to rebuild public trust, they haven't got any, and protect their own female officers and staff, vetting must be much more rigorous and misconduct taken much more seriously. It should be an automatic firing. Sadly, misogynistic and predatory behaviour are prevalent in all the forces we inspected, and an alarming number of women, police officers and staff, talked about the appalling behaviour that they have been on the end of by male colleagues. I am not surprised. We know how awful they're not called pigs for nothing, put it that way. They have many names for police. Some are nice, bobbies and coppers. Some not so nice, the filth, the pigs. And we know that they get the names the filth and the pigs because that is exactly what they are. Only they're worse because they're not just corrupt, they're criminal. In many cases, the perpetrator was someone who had previously been reported for similar behaviour, which either hadn't been taken seriously or it wasn't thoroughly investigated. Many women told us that this kind of behaviour is so prevalent they don't report it until it really escalates. They need to report it and report it and report it. And once they've done it once, report it once to your senior officer, and if nothing is done, you report it to the press every time. And eventually, embarrassment alone will force them to address it. He added, "It seems reasonable for me to say that over the last 3 or 4 years, the number of people recruited over whom we would raise significant questions is certainly in the hundreds, if not the low thousands." This is thousands of police officers up and down the country that are criminal, that are corrupt, that are liars, that are V, that are potential S offenders, probably Rists, and we know that they're there. And we know that they are complicit with the R of children. So undoubtedly the M of other people. Undoubtedly this is who the police are. The former Rear Admiral said it was incredible that some forces did not interview recruits in person and did not bother to check their working history. Suella Braverman said it was disappointing that some forces were taking unnecessary risks. It's not disappointing, love, it's criminal. And everyone who's there, who's on the back end of this, needs to sue. Needs to bring this to court, needs to have the chief constable of their force hauled up in front of a court as the person responsible. Don't say, oh, the force is responsible. The head of that force must be personally culpable. And if the force breaks down the level of, trust or acceptable behaviour to some way, it's the chief constable who is responsible for it, and he's the one who needs to go to jail. Because when they see the senior officers are going to go to jail, you can guarantee interviews will be very, very rigorous. Among the recommendations made were minimum standards for employment checks, better practices for corruption investigations, and improved guidance on conduct in the workplace. The National Police Chiefs Council said bosses would act on the recommendations, but stressed that His Majesty's Inspector agreed with most vetting decisions. Chairman Martin Hewitt said, "We cannot risk predatory or discriminatory individuals slipping through the net." Well, you've had hundreds of years to get that right, and you've never managed it. The College of Policing Chief Constable Andy Marsh said the report would be translated into practical guidance that would improve standards. I bet it doesn't. These people are scum. These cops that sit there, they are corrupt as hell. We all know how corrupt they are, but they're also lazy. They won't do the hard stuff. They won't stop the oil protesters on the road, but they'll arrest some woman for having wrong think over somebody's gender. Or they'll pull someone over for doing 31 in a 30 zone, but they won't actually turn up to a burglary in case there's a burglar still there, and they might have to do something physical because they're lazy, fat, donut eating, tea swilling. Well, they're lazy bastards at the end of the day, aren't they? But that's the lazy bastards are the ones who aren't the corrupt bastards. But anyway, they need to be winkled out, fired. They need to be stopped from joining in the first place. And just generally, if we can start raising the standards, they may get some trust back. But let's face it, I think most trust has gone in the police. We all feel the same. We all feel that the police are not our friends. And I'm going to come up now. Imagine you're the victim of a crime. Now imagine after going to the police that you find out that the people who committed the crime are the very police you went to. We cannot have crooks in blue. We cannot have corrupt officers. We cannot have any officer with a link to criminality, to gangsterism, to corrupt practices. Now, you can't legislate against stupidity and ineptitude, but you can train against it. But criminality? No, you can't do anything about that. It's got to be zero tolerance. And they know, the forces, the seniors in the forces, they know who these policemen are. And they know that they could fire them or at least stop them from joining. But for some reason chose not to. For some reasons it may be they were just so desperate for numbers they'll take anyone. Undoubtedly there is identity politics playing a role here. Yes, this person has got a criminal record, but we like the cut of his jib in terms of box ticking. That is undoubtedly happening as well. And yet those boxes should never be ticked. There's only one box that needs to be ticked on an application form for the police, and that is integrity. Because if you're a criminal, you haven't got any. If you're corrupt, you haven't got any. If you are a V offender, you haven't got any. If you are in any way other than 100% honest, you cannot be a policeman. And that is why I and so many others feel that the police are not your friends, because they're crooks. Anyway, I'll stop there. Thanks very much for listening. If you like what you hear and see on the channel, please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Ring the bell for notification of future output. Leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, watch your wallet when you're near a policeman, and goodbye.